Imagine this. The night sky over Earth is torn apart by an ominous sight. A fleet of colossal alien warships, their metallic hulls reflecting the moonlight like eerie specters of death. Cities around the world go dark as electromagnetic pulses disrupt power grids. Satellites blink out one by one, silencing global communication. Chaos erupts. News stations desperately try to keep up, but all that's left are fractured reports, blurry images of the Zorthak Dominion, an alien race that has just made its presence known in the most brutal way possible. Then, a message cuts through. Every remaining frequency, every radio, every television, every device still operational. The voice is guttural, layered with an unnatural reverberation, as if spoken by something that doesn't merely produce sound, but forces it into existence. You are not worthy of this world. Your species is weak. Your weapons, insignificant. Submit to the Zorthak Dominion, or be eradicated. Silence follows. The entire planet holds its breath. The implications are terrifying. This isn't just a first contact. It's a demand for unconditional surrender. And there's no reason to believe they're bluffing. For centuries, humanity had speculated about alien life. Scientists debated whether extraterrestrials would come in peace or war. But no one had truly prepared for this. An invasion, not of curiosity, not of diplomacy, but of conquest. They didn't come to share knowledge. They didn't come to negotiate. They came to take. The Zorthak fleet stretches across the sky like a mechanical storm, their ships shaped like vast obsidian daggers, cutting through Earth's atmosphere with eerie precision. Their technology is beyond anything humanity has ever conceived. Shields that absorb direct missile strikes, weapon systems that defy physics as we understand them, and engines that make our most advanced spacecraft look like toys. This is a force that has conquered countless worlds before us. And Earth, as far as they're concerned, is just another stepping stone in their galactic empire. Panic spreads like wildfire. Governments scramble to respond. Military commanders issue frantic orders, but there's an undeniable truth looming over them. We are outmatched. Nuclear deterrence means nothing against an enemy that can disable warheads before they even leave the ground. Fighter jets are swatted out of the sky before they can even lock onto their targets. The world's greatest military powers, nations, that have spent decades building arsenals capable of obliterating entire continents, are rendered useless in the blink of an eye. The first strike is merciless. Orbital bombardments rain down on key military installations with pinpoint precision. The Pentagon, gone in an instant. Moscow's missile defense grid, obliterated before it could even be activated. Beijing's command centers, turned to molten rubble. The first casualties aren't soldiers. They're defenses, wiped off the board before humanity can even mount a resistance. And then they go after the cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Sydney. The death toll skyrockets within minutes. Skyscrapers crumble under pulses of energy so intense that steel melts like wax. People try to flee. But where do you run when the enemy is everywhere? The world watches in horror as entire metropolises are turned into graveyards of smoke and ruin. The Zorthak believe the battle is already won, that humanity will kneel, that will beg for mercy. But there's one thing they failed to understand. Humanity is no stranger to war. We've fought against impossible odds before. We've been outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every way imaginable. And yet, we've always found a way to survive. From the Spartans at Thermopylae to the resistance fighters of World War II, history is filled with moments where we refused to bow, where we turned the tide against overwhelming forces, and this is no different. The first human counterattack is. The first wave of destruction rippled across the planet. A grim realization set in. This was not a battle for territory or resources. This was extermination. The Zorthak were not offering terms of surrender. They weren't seeking dominance through subjugation. They wanted Earth wiped clean, ready for their own expansion. But in their arrogance, they made a crucial mistake. They underestimated the very thing that had allowed humanity to thrive against all odds for millennia: our sheer refusal to die. governments across the world, though crippled, were not destroyed. The moment the initial attacks subsided, something ignited in humanity. Not just fear, but defiance. Deep within the subterranean command bunkers of NORAD, NATO leaders and military strategists across multiple nations linked together in a final act of defiance. The enemy had crippled our air forces and disabled many of our nuclear silos, but that didn't mean Earth was defenseless. Humanity had spent centuries mastering the art of war, and if the Zorthak wanted a fight, we would give them one. The first counterstrike came not from Earth's most powerful nations, but from an unlikely source: small, decentralized resistance cells operating in complete secrecy. In the digital age, warfare wasn't just fought with bullets and bombs, but with data. The Zorthak relied on superior technology, but even superior systems could be hacked, jammed, and sabotaged. Within hours, a global cyber resistance formed, led by the world's most skilled hackers, programmers, and AI specialists. Their mission? Find a weakness in the enemy's technological dominance. And they did. The Zorthak operated with centralized control, relaying commands from their massive mothership. While their ships were physically indestructible, their systems weren't, designed to handle human ingenuity. A virus, coded and deployed in record time, was sent via captured frequencies, piggybacking off the very transmissions the aliens used to communicate. And then, suddenly, some of their ships began to falter. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Several warships suffered disruptions in their shielding, leaving them temporarily vulnerable. It was the opening humanity needed. In a desperate, all-or-nothing strike, every remaining functional military force launched a coordinated attack. Fighter jets, bombers, experimental railguns, hypersonic missiles. Every piece of hardware Earth had left was thrown into the fray. And then came humanity's true trump card: the hidden weapons that were never supposed to exist. The hidden weapons humanity was never supposed to use. The world had always assumed that nuclear war was the ultimate deterrent, the final weapon in humanity's arsenal. But what most didn't know, what had been hidden deep within the classified black projects of the world's most secretive military programs, was that Earth had been preparing for an existential threat for decades. Weapons so advanced, so dangerous, that their very existence had been denied by every major government. The moment the cyber resistance managed to disrupt the Zorthak fleet's shielding systems, humanity played its deadliest hand. Beneath the Arctic ice, in a facility known only to a handful of world leaders, Project Ragnarok was activated. This wasn't a nuclear launch site. This was something entirely different. Decades of reverse engineering suspected extraterrestrial materials, recovered from unexplained crashes and covert encounters, had led to the creation of directed energy weapons that rivaled science fiction. Weapons capable of producing concentrated plasma bursts, powerful enough to melt through reinforced steel from orbit. Within minutes of activation, Arctic-based railgun platforms roared to life, firing hypersonic slugs at speeds exceeding Mach 20. These projectiles, enhanced by classified electromagnetic acceleration, punched through the compromised shields of the Zorthak fleet like paper, sending massive shockwaves through their formations. The first alien warship to be hit, the Vakesh Dreadnought, a vessel over 3 miles long, detonated in mid-air, breaking apart like a glass sculpture smashed with a hammer. The world watched in awe. For the first time since the invasion began, a Zorthak ship had fallen. But that was only the beginning. Hidden beneath the Nevada desert, Project Revenant was unleashed, an experimental fleet of autonomous combat drones equipped with quantum AI that had been deemed too unpredictable for conventional warfare. These drones weren't piloted by humans. They learned, adapted, and thought faster than any living soldier could. And now they were unleashed on the enemy. Thousands of them, sleek, agile, and equipped with weapons designed specifically for extraterrestrial threats, swarmed into the sky. Unlike human pilots, they didn't need to think in milliseconds. They thought in microseconds. Their reaction speeds made them almost untouchable, weaving through alien fire with impossible precision. One by one, the Zorthak ships began to fall. What had started as an extermination was becoming a war. One the invaders were no longer winning effortlessly. But humanity wasn't done yet. Because deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something far more terrifying was about to be unleashed. The ultimate weapon, Earth's last line of defense as the battle raged across the planet. With alien warships crashing from the sky and humanity's hidden technologies pushing the invaders back, the Zorthak fleet adapted. Their initial arrogance had cost them, but now they realized something that no other species they had conquered ever forced them to acknowledge. Humans refused to go down easily. Enraged by their unexpected losses, the Zorthak retaliated with full force. Their fleet reorganized, unleashing weapons they hadn't even used in the first wave. Antimatter lances cut through the sky like celestial blades, vaporizing entire cities in the blink of an eye. Self-replicating nanodrones, designed to dismantle technology at the molecular level, were deployed across battlefields, infecting Earth's most advanced weapons. Humanity was fighting back, but it was still losing ground. That's when the final failsafe was activated. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, at the Mariana Trench, lay the most classified project in human history, Project Leviathan. Unlike other weapons, this wasn't designed for offensive warfare. This was Earth's last resort deterrent, a weapon of apocalyptic scale meant for one thing only: annihilating an enemy when all other options had failed. For decades, military scientists had been experimenting with graviton manipulation, a technology so theoretical that most physicists dismissed it as impossible. But within the secrecy of deep-sea military research facilities, humanity had cracked a terrifying truth. Gravity could be weaponized, and now it was humanity's only hope. With the press of a final command, Leviathan was brought online. In the deepest trench on Earth, seismic activity spiked to impossible levels. The ocean churned violently, tsunamis forming from an invisible force. But it wasn't the water that was moving. It was something underneath it. An artificial singularity, a controlled gravity well that had been hidden within the trench for over 2 decades. Within moments, a gravitational anomaly unlike anything in history was unleashed. A black wave surged upward from the trench, an invisible pulse that stretched toward the heavens. Zorthak ships caught in its path were instantly crushed, imploding under forces even their technology couldn't withstand. The battlefield above Earth transformed into a spectacle of destruction as warships the size of cities were compressed into the size of cars, their entire mass reduced to nothing in seconds. But the true horror was yet to come. Because the Leviathan system wasn't just meant to destroy ships, it was designed to disrupt gravity itself, not just on Earth but across the entire Zorthak fleet. Their command vessels, still hovering in high orbit, untouched by Earth's defenses, suddenly found themselves in chaos. Their stabilizers failed. Their advanced propulsion systems, built for perfect maneuverability, became useless. Their own ships started collapsing under their own weight, their hulls bending, breaking, and finally ripping apart from the inside out. Panic spread. Among the Zorthak ranks, the invincible empire that had crushed world after world had never encountered something like this. Earth wasn't just fighting back anymore. Earth was winning. The fall of the Zorthak Armada, humanity's wrath unleashed, the Leviathan system, was never meant to be activated. It was built on theories so dangerous that even the most war-hardened generals had agreed. If it were ever used, it would mean humanity was standing at the edge of extinction. And yet, as the sky burned with alien wreckage, as gravity itself turned into a weapon, there was one undeniable truth. The Zorthak had pushed too far. They had come expecting submission. They found an apocalypse. The Zorthak fleet, once an indomitable armada, was now in complete disarray. Their warships, technological marvels that had wiped entire civilizations from existence, were being torn apart by forces they couldn't comprehend. In the vacuum of space, their command vessels collapsed under their own mass, crushing entire crews in an instant. The gravitational anomaly from Leviathan had spread beyond Earth's atmosphere, creating a zone where even light bent and time itself distorted. Their once proud flagships became their own execution chambers. But humanity was not done. With their fleet crippled, the surviving Zorthak forces attempted a desperate retreat. Their remaining ships, though battered, still had one advantage. They could leave the battlefield and escape into deep space. If they did, they could regroup. They could return. Earth could never allow that to happen. What followed was the greatest, coordinated military strike in human history. Every remaining satellite, Every functioning space station, and every experimental orbital weapon system that had never been acknowledged was activated. The remnants of Earth's fleets, manned by pilots who had lost everything but their rage, chased down the fleeing warships with a vengeance that defied belief. Then came the final, desperate act. In the midst of the chaos, a single human vessel broke through the remains of the Zorthak formation. A ship unlike any other. Not a warship, not a fighter, but a colony vessel repurposed for one mission: vengeance. The UES Retribution had been launched decades earlier, a project designed for long-range deep space exploration. It was never meant for war, but in the darkest days of the invasion, humanity's engineers had stripped it down, reinforced its hull, and armed it with a weapon unlike any other: a quantum destabilizer, an untested, unproven weapon built for a single purpose: to end an enemy permanently. As the last Zorthak dreadnought initiated its hyperspace jump to flee, the Retribution's captain, a nameless hero who would never be forgotten, gave a final command: for Earth. The Retribution rammed directly into the escaping flagship, activating the quantum destabilizer at the moment of impact. The effect was immediate. A shockwave of quantum instability rippled outward, disintegrating the Zorthak ship on a molecular level. The very fabric of space around it collapsed, forming a tear in reality itself. The remaining Zorthak ships, too slow to escape, were pulled into the anomaly, vanishing into the void, never to be seen again. And just like that, the war was over. The skies of Earth were silent once more. The invaders who had once threatened to erase humanity from history were themselves erased. But the battle wasn't just about survival, it was a message. To any species that dared to look upon Earth with conquest in their hearts, this was what awaited them. The aftermath. A galaxy forever changed. The war had ended, but the scars it left behind ran deeper than the craters on Earth's surface. Cities had been reduced to rubble, entire regions had been left uninhabitable, and billions of lives had been lost. But despite the destruction, one undeniable truth emerged: humanity had survived. Yet, this was not just a victory for Earth. It was a warning, a message sent across the stars that no species had ever dared to transmit before. The invincible Zorthak, the ruthless conquerors who had dominated the cosmos for centuries, had not only been defeated, they had been erased, and the galaxy was watching. The galactic response: fear and shock across the void. Thousands of alien civilizations had observed the conflict unfold. Some had seen Earth as nothing more than a primitive, inconsequential world, a species barely stepping into the stars. But after witnessing what had transpired, they no longer saw humans as weak. The Galactic Council, an ancient coalition of powerful species that had long tolerated the Zorthak's brutal reign, had never interfered in their conquests. To them, balance was more important than morality. They had believed that the Zorthak were too powerful to challenge, that their empire was eternal. And yet, in mere days, humanity had shattered that belief. Fear spread like wildfire among the ruling species of the galaxy. What kind of civilization could take on an empire with no interstellar allies, no vast fleets, no colonies beyond its homeworld, and still win? The answer was terrifying. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session, their grand halls filled with voices of panic, awe, and quiet terror. The humans are unlike any species we have ever encountered. They do not submit. They do not negotiate surrender. They fight until nothing remains. If they can do this to the Zorthak, what will they do if we cross them? For the first time in millennia, the Council debated the unthinkable. Should humanity be contained? Should Earth be quarantined, isolated, or even destroyed before it could become an even greater threat? But others argued differently. No, we must not provoke them. We must not make the same mistake as the Zorthak. In the end, a decision was made. The Council would not act against Earth. Not now, not ever. Instead, they would recognize humanity's sovereignty, not out of respect, but out of fear. Earth was officially placed under a new classification in the Galactic Archives: extreme threat level, do not engage. And with that, the entire galaxy took a step back from humanity. Forever. The transformation of humanity. But Earth was no longer the same world it had been before the war. The invasion had changed everything. For the first time in history, humanity was united under one banner. Not as separate nations, but as a single species. Old rivalries had faded in the fires of war. Governments merged, militaries combined, and technological advancements surged forward at an unprecedented rate. Humanity had reverse-engineered what remained of Zorthak technology, integrating their knowledge into new, terrifying weapons, far beyond anything the rest of the galaxy could comprehend. The shattered world that had once stood alone now became a fortress among the stars. Orbital defense grids were constructed, powered by the same gravitational technology that had crushed the Zorthak. Quantum destabilizers, once considered too dangerous to exist, were mass-produced in secret. Humanity would never be caught unprepared again. But the most shocking development was not Earth's militarization. It was humanity's expansion. The survivors of the war, driven by both vengeance and ambition, looked beyond their own world for the first time. The stars, once thought to be distant dreams, became their new frontier. And so, the first great fleets of humanity set out into the void, not as explorers, but as conquerors. For the first time in galactic history, the predators had become the prey. The rise of humanity. The hunters become the hunted. The galaxy had hoped that humanity would retreat, that after their victory against the Zorthak, they would be content to rebuild their home and remain isolated. They were wrong. Something had changed within the human psyche. Earth had learned the harshest lesson of all. Peace is an illusion, and security is a myth. The only way to ensure survival was through absolute dominance. And so, humanity turned, its gaze outward. The expansion, a relentless march into the stars. What began as a desperate struggle for survival quickly became an unstoppable conquest. The first human war fleets, forged in the fires of battle, left Earth in search of new territories, not to explore, but to expand. The first targets were the Zorthak's former territories, entire star systems that had once belonged to humanity's greatest enemy. With the Empire's collapse, these worlds had been left in chaos, their former slave races struggling for independence. Humanity did not arrive as saviors. They arrived as masters. The declaration was simple. You have two choices: join us or be erased. Many species submitted without resistance. They had seen what happened to the Zorthak. They had no desire to share their fate. But some dared to resist. These species, rebellious remnants of the Zorthak's old empire, believed that humanity's power was temporary, that Earth's forces would weaken as they stretched across the stars. They formed coalitions, gathered fleets, and attempted to stand against the rising human dominion. Their fleets lasted mere days. The new human warships, forged from both Earth's ingenuity and stolen Zorthak technology, were beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. Their weapons didn't just destroy ships, they erased them from existence. Their soldiers didn't just fight, they hunted. Entire systems fell overnight. By the end of the first decade after the war, humanity had claimed more than 100 star systems. What had taken the Zorthak centuries to build, humanity had conquered in mere years, and the galaxy watched in horror. The Galactic Council's dilemma, a new superpower panic, spread through the halls of the Galactic Council. The very same species that had once debated whether Earth should be contained were now debating something far more terrifying. Was it already too late? Humanity was no longer just a threat. They were a rising superpower. The balance of the galaxy had been shattered. The Council had long kept the most powerful species in check, preventing any one civilization from growing too strong. But now, humanity had broken that balance. And the worst part? They had done it alone. No alliances, no trade agreements, no negotiations. Just war. The Council faced a choice: unite the remaining powers of the galaxy to fight back or accept humanity's rule. Some proposed desperate measures: a preemptive strike, a full-scale war against Earth before their forces became truly unstoppable. But the moment that idea was spoken aloud, it was immediately dismissed. The galaxy was too afraid. No species wanted to be the one to start a war with humanity, not after seeing what had happened to the Zorthak. They had learned something terrifying. Humans never stop. The Council's final decision was one of surrender without battle. Humanity was officially recognized as a galactic superpower. Their territories were acknowledged as sovereign. Their military was never to be challenged. The rest of the galaxy would stay out of their way, or face extinction. A new galactic era, the age of humanity, and so, history was rewritten. For the first time, Earth was no longer just a world. It was the capital of an empire. The United Terran Dominion, a name once whispered in desperation, became the most feared power in existence. The galaxy, which had once looked down on humanity as weak, now bowed before them. The message had been clear from the beginning. This is why you should never mess with humanity.